Hi! In February on social media called ВКонтакте, I saw these awesome stump lamps created by Shroom in the room. They are charming, amazing and magical. In one word, marvelous. And I would really like to make something like this. But again, I'll repeat myself, it is extremely important that this idea is not mine. I simply came up with how I can make this by myself. I would really like to ask you one question, but it will be in the end of the video. Now I don't want to distract you from watching the process of creation of this tiny stump. To make a stump, we need a stump, but cutting a tree is out of the question, so I couldn't start working without a stump. It was holding the whole process. But when I was walking home, I saw the tree fallen by a hurricane, and it was at the moment when street sweepers had already cut this tree. I was lucky that no one had taken this tiny log of the perfect size. Well, eventually I took it. I was bearing it and thinking, too heavy. Sometime later I was walking again and the tree was still lying, and there was such a log, it was just perfect. But I didn't take it when I first saw it, because it was quite huge. But it didn't stop me later. I sounded like a frog. Well, just imagine me like a beautiful lady with makeup and high heels trying to take this log. Next I had to cut it. It turned out that it wasn't that easy as I had thought before, because the saw was getting stuck all the time, and you know, it was still a heavy log, so my father helped me. I had such a lamp from Fixed Price, but I also saw similar lights in Leroy Merlin and on AliExpress. It will be placed inside the log. I outlined the lamp, and after that I needed to cut out this inner part. Initially I planned to drill some holes and after that remove everything using a flat chisel as I did with the log for Yule, but this wood was raw, so all my drills for wood didn't manage to do at least anything with this wood. The flat chisel also didn't really help me at first, but then I took a round chisel and the things got rolling. Then I realized that the stump needed fixation. However, my granddad advised me to continue cutting it on a big stump instead of a workbench. And it really helped. I started working much faster. I made such a rosebud inside, but I needed to horizontally cut this mini forest inside the stump. So I took a Dremel tool. Hopefully I found such a circular saw blade which helped me to remove the excess. First I took a sanding bit. To be honest, I don't really remember why I decided to use it as the first one, because it was quite ineffective. After that, I made a decision to make this cavity deeper, so I kept working by changing flat and round chisels, creating such a forest inside and then cutting it with a Dremel, because the sides of the stump didn't really allow me to clear everything inside with the chisels only. Then I sanded everything, including the sides. The upper part of the stump also experienced my new sander. Everything was extremely smooth. You can finally see how we're going to hide our lamp inside. Next go the crystals. It seems like originally the real and natural gems must be used, but I have none of them, and that is not that interesting for me. So these people who have been watching my channel for a long time already perfectly know which material I'm going to use. I mix resin, and while the bubbles are going out, I started preparing the molds. Once I saw a technique on the internet when you cover the mold with some nail powder and after that you pour resin inside, and this powder remains on your artwork. I bought 3 such mother of pearl colors, and in this case I decided to use the pinky one. In my video about the summer collection, where I had been trying the nail powder for the first time, I was suggested to apply the powder with such a sponge for eyeshadows. What I can say is that it turns out pretty good. In such a way, I colored all the planes of the future crystals, and after that I poured resin on them. But it was too early for pouring, because there still were some bubbles in resin. Eventually it will produce an interesting effect. I didn't fill some molds with resin to the full, because I wanted to make the crystals of different size. When they hardened completely, it was the time for taking them out. Unfortunately, water or oil, which you advised me earlier, didn't help me to take the crystals out. But as it was not the first time I used these molds, it was a bit easier. I twist them and give a push below to squeeze the crystals out. The sides will be turning back, and it will help the crystals to get out. The nail powder produced a stunning effect. The bubbles were gradually going out when the crystals were upside down in their molds, but now it looks like the bubbles are flying up. Such an interesting effect, isn't it? I decided to cut crystals at the bottom, so I would attach them at different angles to the lamp, and I started gluing the crystals to it. Light travels through them just perfectly. Next we need to load everything into the stump. Now I understand that I overdid this cavity for the lamp, so I had to make such a support out of unnecessary wooden things. I found nothing more unnecessary than these things at that moment, because I recently had a throwing everything away mood, so the plywood cuttings, which had been just laying around, were extremely handy. In some spots between the crystals, I poured a little of UV resin and let it harden. It was handy for this purpose as well. Next, I needed to decor everything with some moss. I bought these in Leonardo, and I thought that it would be super small, but after I had spread it, I realized that it was ideal for such a purpose. At first, I started gluing the moss with super glue, but I changed my mind and took a glue gun, and it was the right decision. I was doing my best to make the part with the lamp removable, for instance to change the batteries. I glued the moss separately on the lamp and separately on the spots around it. The thing which is really nice about moss is that you can use it to hide all the defects. For example, I will hide the defect which I made while I was cutting the stump. This is my passing result. The twigs which were in the moss packaging I decided to glue, because the whole composition looks more natural with them. I also had these pines, which I got from my subscriber when I was in France. One of the pines was with a weirdly attached twig, so I broke it off. On the box of the subscriber's parcel was a tiny mushroom, which I also decided to use. By the way, an interesting moment. Sometimes a glue gun leaves such spider lines, and this is the case when you don't need to remove it, because it looks like a cobweb and it fits into the composition perfectly. Now the question which doesn't come out of my mind, so I'm interested in your opinion on this point. I, like many other people, sometimes look at artworks of different masters on Pinterest, Instagram, Vkontakte, and due to my experience in craft and handmade, I sometimes can figure out how this or that thing was made, like in this case with a stump. I doubt whether it is good that I tell the whole internet my understanding of how these things were created or how I reduplicated the same thing. It may be interesting to you, but what about the people who created such art pieces? I am not making this for sale, but at the same time I can't say that I'm not getting a commercial benefit from it, because I get some money by making videos. Even if the matter is not in money, is it okay if I saw a thing, figured out how it had been made, and told you about it? This is still someone's idea, but at the same time, it was me who figured everything out. These weren't super secret and expensive masterclasses which helped me to understand. Well, this issue extremely bothers me, but I hope this video was interesting and useful for you. I love you this much. Bye.